Whoa. If you're nervous, I don't know what that is. If you're nervous, if you're scared, if you're frightened, channel all your energy into politics. Channel everything into politics. The 2026 midterms. That is the answer. I'll have more on that momentarily. Police have arrested 22-year-old Tyler Robinson in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Tyler Robinson reportedly confessed to his parents. Family members say Robinson had gotten very political and opposed Charlie Kirk's views. They are reportedly registered Republicans. The dad, I've seen some reports the dad is a cop. The governor of Utah categorized the shooting as a political assassination. He said bullet casings found at the scene included several Antifa messages, including one that said, "Hey, fascist, catch." Charlie Kirk's wife, Erica, in a live stream seen by 500,000 viewers Friday, addressed Robinson, saying, quote, "You have no idea what you unleashed," unquote. She then added, quote, "You have no idea what you have just unleashed across this entire country, in this world. You have no idea. You have no idea the fire that you have ignited within this wife. The cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry." Pete Hegseth, the head of the Pentagon, has reportedly fired several members of our military for mocking or belittling Charlie Kirk's murder. More on that later. And Glenn Beck said of Charlie Kirk, who opposed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and called Dr. Martin Luther King a horrible human being, Glenn Beck said, quote, "We must stop calling Charlie anything other than a civil rights leader," unquote. I'll have more on conservatives comparing Charlie Kirk to Dr. King later on today's show. Well, I'm going to lead off with Bernie Sanders. I don't play many clips on this show. I'm going to play this one in its entirety. I try to find an edit point. Leave a comment and tell me what you would have cut for time. This is a perfect hot take on the killing of Charlie Kirk. My only regret, this speech wasn't delivered from the Oval Office. Here is who I take my marching orders from. There's Ralph Nader, Howie Klein, and Senator Bernie Sanders. Please pay attention.
I want to say a few words regarding the terrible murder yesterday of Charlie Kirk, someone who I strongly disagreed with on almost every issue, but who was clearly a very smart and effective communicator and organizer, and someone unafraid to get out into the world and engage the public. My condolences go out to his wife and his family. A free and democratic society, which is what America is supposed to be about, depends upon the basic premise that people can speak out, organize, and take part in public life without fear, without worrying that they might be killed, injured, or humiliated for expressing their political views. In fact, that is the essence of what freedom is about and what democracy is about. You have a point of view, that's great. I have a point of view that is different than yours. That's great. Let's argue it out. We make our case to the American people at the local, state, and federal levels, and we hold free elections in which the people decide what they want. That's called freedom and democracy. And I want as many people as possible to participate in that process without fear. Freedom and democracy is not about political violence. It is not about assassinating public officials. It is not about trying to intimidate people who speak out on an issue. Political violence, in fact, is political cowardice. It means that you cannot convince people of the correctness of your ideas, and you have to impose them through force. Every American, no matter what one's political point of view may be, must condemn all forms of political violence and all forms of intimidation. We must welcome and respect dissenting points of view. That's what our Constitution is about. That's what our Bill of Rights is about. That, in fact, is what freedom is about. The murder of Charlie Kirk is part of a disturbing rise in political violence that threatens to hollow out public life and make people afraid of participating. From the January 6, 2021 attack on the United States Capitol, to the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, to the attack on Paul Pelosi, to the attempted kidnapping of Michigan Governor Whitmer, to the murder of Minnesota's Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman, and her husband, to the arson attack on Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, to the shooting of United Health Executive Brian Thompson, and the shooting several years ago of Representative Steve Scalise, this chilling rise in violence has targeted public officials across the political spectrum. Sadly, this is not a new phenomenon. We all remember the assassinations of President Kennedy, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Senator Robert F. Kennedy, John Lennon, Medgar Evers, and the attempted assassinations of President Ronald Reagan and Alabama Governor George Wallace. This is a difficult and contentious moment in American history. Democracy in our country and throughout the world is under attack. And there are a lot of reasons for that which need serious discussion. But bottom line, if we honestly believe in democracy, if we believe in freedom, all of us must be loud and clear. Political violence, regardless of ideology, is not the answer and must be condemned. Thank you very much.
Nothing else needs to be said. Unfortunately, it was. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, appearing on Fox News, blamed Charlie Kirk's killing on radical Islam and ultra-progressives who, Netanyahu said, quote, use violence to try to take down their enemies, as opposed to Netanyahu, who's all about keeping the lines of communications open and bargaining for peace, which is why he ordered an airstrike in Doha this week to kill Hamas's lead negotiator. Don Jr., who hates rifles, hates shooting things, accused the left of resorting to violence when they can't win an argument. You know, like when they stormed the Capitol on January 6. Appearing on Fox News, Don Jr. said, quote, I see the constant talk about the violence goes both ways. It does not. The violence is going one way, unquote. Steve Bannon declared on his show, The War Room, that Charlie Kirk is a casualty of war. He said, we are at war in this country. Alex Jones, who announced this week he's taking the $1.5 billion judgment he's been ordered to pay the survivors of the Sandy Hook shooting after he terrorized them by claiming their loved ones didn't die and were instead part of a false flag operation to create so much hysteria Obama could get away with taking our guns from us. Alex Jones responded to the shooting of Charlie Kirk by telling his viewers, quote, we're in a war, and that the left has been saying, put a bullseye on Trump, a bullseye on his supporters. They've been calling for violence, unquote. Alex Jones said, this is dangerous. This is a war. This is a war. This is a war. This is it. Get ready. They're terrorists. They mean business, unquote. A bomb scare was phoned into the Democratic National Committee headquarters in D.C. immediately after the shooting. At least 6 historically black universities received bomb threats in the immediate aftermath of the shooting as well. Alabama State, Virginia State, Hampton Southern, Clark Atlanta, and Bethune-Cookman universities all ordered students to shelter in place. No explosives were found. Civil rights activist, the Reverend Al Sharpton, spoke out against these threats to black colleges And he also spoke out against political violence, sharpened plans to increase security for himself after his death threats have intensified. Elon Musk tried to tamp down the anger by taking to Twitter and telling his millions of followers, quote, "The left is the party of murder." Musk later said, quote, "If the left won't leave us in peace, then our choice is to fight or die," unquote. Fox News host Jesse Waters said, quote, "They are at war with us. This can never happen again. It ends now. This is a turning point, and we know which direction we're going," unquote. Laura Loomer, the right-wing activist with a direct line to the president, tweeted, "Debate time is over," unquote. Loomer, a champion of the First Amendment, said the time has finally come for our government to use everything at its disposal to crack down on the left. House Republican Clay Higgins, a former cop, vowed to use his powers as a congressman to order social media platforms to ban anyone who belittled Charlie Kirk's death. Clay Higgins said he will also arrange to blacklist the businesses of people who belittled Charlie Kirk's death. Clay Higgins said the time has come to cancel, quote, "these evil, sick animals with extreme prejudice," unquote. I believe extreme prejudice is also why Clay Higgins is no longer allowed to be a police officer in Louisiana. Everything you do, Clay Higgins, is done with extreme prejudice. Donald Trump, the day of the shooting, not knowing who or why, went on television to blame the radical left for their acts of terrorism. Compare that to Bernie's 4-minute address, which is getting praise from everyone, including those on the right. Trump posthumously awarded Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom, stating Kirk was a giant of his generation and a martyr for truth and freedom. Later, after taking part in the 9/11 ceremonies, Trump told reporters, quote, "We just have to start beating the hell out of radical left lunatics." Well, the good news is Trump's supporters know he's prone to hyperbole, and his supporters never act on what he tells them to do. January 6th was, just a protest that got a little out of hand. A U.S. Secret Service agent was suspended after he took to Facebook and belittled the killing of Charlie Kirk. The agent, according to Real Clear Politics, wrote, "If you are mourning this guy, delete me. He spewed hate and racism on his show. At the end of the day, you answer to God and speak things into existence. You can only circumvent karma. She doesn't leave," unquote. That is a very stupid thing to post. You don't need to have a hot take after a political assassination. So the agent was placed on administrative leave, and rightfully so. His security clearance has been revoked for violating the code of conduct. You're not helping anyone by posting things like this. The U.S. Secret Service admitted on Thursday to a security breach inside Trump's Sterling, Virginia golf club on August 31st, when a member of that club with a Glock was able to enter a room where President Trump was speaking. It was that member who reported the Glock to Secret Service, realizing he accidentally brought it in with him. You don't know you're carrying a Glock when you're about to see the President of the United States. Maybe if you forgot that you're carrying a Glock, you shouldn't be allowed to. The Secret Service failed to catch the Glock in their bag search. They didn't see it in their metal detectors with the wands. One Secret Service agent on the scene has been placed on administrative leave. I believe I have exclusive video. This is exclusive video of Donald Trump fertilizing the White House lawn moments after being told of this security breach. Here it is. That is Donald Trump fertilizing the White House lawn after being told, okay, sorry about that. All right, where am I? Yeah, let's not look at that anymore. We're in an AI bubble. We're in the middle of an AI bubble, and a lot of fortunes are about to be lost. Trust me on this. The stock market's hitting record highs, and it's because of AI, which is basically this. Okay? This is AI. That's all it is. And data management. Stop it. I'm sorry. It's just been, I need that for my own sanity. So investors are pouring trillions of dollars into databases and destroying the planet because AI requires enormous energy. More money right now is being spent on databases than office space. They're not building offices anymore. Investors are pouring trillions into databases for AI. They think people won't need to go to an office anymore because everything is going to be done by AI, which means we don't need offices and we don't need workers. This is a bubble. As you know, I play with AI. I use a lot of it. It's great for organizing data or playing with video. It's going to create a lot of jobs and destroy others. But this is similar to the internet bubble from 25 years ago. And we had a new president when that internet bubble crashed. Everything they told us back then about the internet came to fruition. They made these wild promises. And the internet kept all its promises and then some. But it was still a bubble, and it crashed. Investors got burnt, lost their life savings, people lost their jobs. The same thing is going to happen with AI. I don't know when this bubble is going to burst, but there's a lot of debt. A lot of people are borrowing money to buy into AI, and it's going to burst. And AI will still be bigger than the internet, but this bubble is going to wipe out a lot of fortunes. So again, if you want to know what the internet is, it's people like me, losers, sitting around doing this. This is basically, there's only so much database management you can do. And the rest is just schmucks like me making videos of Donald Trump self-fertilizing the White House lawn. Well, Trump is, like all of us, crapping his pants right now. That's the point I'm making. FBI, new data from the FBI shows nearly 9,500 threats against lawmakers this year so far. We're approaching an all-time high. Speaker Mike Johnson said he's inundated with requests from House members for heightened security, this after Charlie Kirk's killing. This is why we need to get rid of these guns. South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace saying she will be carrying a gun with her at all times. Now, she was the first member of Congress to blame Kirk's killing on Democrats, and she refused to apologize. She wouldn't take it back. She doubled down and said Democrats brainwash the mentally ill, people who are mentally fragile, she said, to commit acts of violence. Stacey Garrity is Pennsylvania's two-term Republican state treasurer who is running for governor of Pennsylvania against the incumbent Josh Shapiro in the November 2026 election. That race has started. During an interview with a right-wing radio talk show host in Pennsylvania, she seems to have agreed when the host of this radio show said Governor Josh Shapiro was personally responsible for the arson attack on the governor's mansion back in April of this year. By the way, after Kirk was pronounced dead, Josh Shapiro ordered Pennsylvania's state flag to be lowered. Democrat. Congressman Warren Davidson, Republican from Ohio, blamed Kirk's killing on, quote, dehumanizing rhetoric coming from the left. Missouri Republican Bob Onder took to the House floor, blaming the left for Kirk's death, accusing them of, quote, embracing the evil, the false, and ugly. He then warned the left, quote, literally will kill those with whom they disagree, just as their predecessors, leftists like Marx and Stalin and Lenin and Pol Pot and Fidel Castro did. Or your predecessors, Congressman, Hitler, Mussolini, and every South American dictator. These are totalitarians. They're not ideologues. So, if you're going to pin Mao and Stalin on the left, then I'm going to pin Hitler, Pinochet, and every South American dictator on the right. These aren't ideologues. They're totalitarians. House Republican and rageaholic Derek Van Orden of Wisconsin, who never missed an opportunity to berate staffers and strangers, told reporters, quote, every single one of you here, you're at fault. You, the media. And then he walked away. He likes his beer. I have video of Derek Van Orden enjoying his beer, but there's no time. So look, there's vitriol on the left. There's vitriol on the right. I can't go on Twitter with an adding machine and keep score of all the vitriol and tell you which side is more hateful based on Twitter or based on anecdotal evidence. But what I can do is add up all the comments in the aftermath of the Kirk shooting, comments made by elected members of Congress, governors, and mayors. I can't control what a citizen does. I can't control what someone who might share my politics does or says. But I can't control what my elected government officials say and do by not voting for them. You measure political violence in a country, you measure political hate by what the political leaders say, do, and stand for. When it comes to elected officials, it is the Democrats, all of them, who are asking people to tamp down the heated rhetoric right now. It is the Democrats who are saying violence has no place in the public square. They're not saying this is war. They didn't say it after the killings of the Democratic state senator and speaker in Minnesota. They didn't say it after Josh Shapiro's mansion was hit. In fact, one pundit was fired from the ultra-left-wing MSNBC for even suggesting Kirk's shooting shouldn't be a surprise. That was a fireable offense on the left. When you look right now at every single Democrat elected to higher office, when you look at every single legitimate leftist news organization, liberal news organization, or super PAC, not a single one this week blamed Republicans or Charlie Kirk or even guns for the shooting, although some people did blame the guns, including me. Because guns, that's what's to blame, is the guns. I'm sorry to people on the right that Charlie Kirk was killed. It is a national tragedy. But every irresponsible word after his murder came from leaders on their side, not ours. If you leave a comment, if you can find, I know Ilhan Omar spoke ill of Charlie Kirk. I did catch that. So if you can leave a comment, if you can find any examples of leaders, elected leaders from the Democratic Party who didn't say violence is wrong or who belittled Kirk's murder, leave a comment. Democrats do not approve, elected Democrats do not approve of violence unless it's happening in Gaza or Ukraine, or at least some Democrats. We are still the party that wants an assault weapons ban. And I should be able to call Donald Trump a fascist, which he is, without having to worry that someone might try to harm him because I said that. I disagree with Donald Trump. I think he's the worst president of my lifetime. I don't want anything bad to happen to him. Maybe prison. Maybe prison. That's all. I wish him a long, I don't know if a happy life. I don't think he's capable of a happy life, but don't want to see it. And Democrats don't want to see it. What happened to Charlie Kirk saddened me. People don't deserve to die because they have an awful public persona. People don't deserve to die if they just do and say horrible things. If that were the case, nobody in our country would be here. I hate to burst your moral high ground bubble, America. None of us who live in America are entitled to the moral high ground. Every single one of us is awful. You know, we play video games while our government does horrible things overseas and to each other. We're awful, but that doesn't mean any of us deserve to be shot or killed. Again, maybe prison. We have about 2.5 million people behind bars. I think most of them are nonviolent and never had a trial. But I think there are about 2.5 million Americans who should be locked up. We've just got the wrong ones. Well, it's not just me who's noticed, it's the Republicans who are using this week's tragedy to gin up. You know, I don't know what. I don't know why they're saying this. North Carolina Senator Thom Tillis, Republican, this week admonished his fellow party members, saying he was disgusted by them for repeating the talking point that the killing of Charlie Kirk means we're at war. That's what Thom Tillis of North Carolina said, Republican. He called such hyperbole a desperate cry for digital attention, adding it's cheap, disgusting, and awful. So is that it? Is it digital attention? Does Nancy Mace think she's going to get more donations and more retweets and more attention by stoking the embers, by blaming Democrats for the assassination? By the way, Thom Tillis is not running for re-election next year. All the centrists and moderates are heading for the door. He's leaving partly because of all the death threats he got while he was wavering on the Pete Hegseth nomination. I've talked about that. Nebraska House Republican Don Bacon, also the recipient of death threats 2 years ago when he wouldn't vote for Jim Jordan as Speaker. Nebraska House Republican Don Bacon reminded his GOP colleagues that before they continue to blame all political violence on the left, he said, quote, "We had Democrats killed in Minnesota too, right?" Unquote. Bacon, like Tillis, is also leaving Washington after next year's midterms. He's a general, by the way. And I believe he and his wife, while Jim Jordan was running for Speaker, they both slept with guns underneath their pillow because the death threats from supporters of Jim Jordan were so voluminous. Well, On June 14th, Democrat Melissa Hortman, who once served as Minnesota's House Speaker, was shot to death in her home along with her husband, Mark. Minnesota State Democratic Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette were allegedly shot in their home by that same assassin. They survived. The killing of Hortman and the wounding of Hoffman have been described as a political shooting. The man charged with the crime is reported to have been a devoted listener of Alex Jones. He voted for Trump, was adamantly opposed to abortion and the LGBTQ community. And my first reaction was, get rid of the guns. I believe Alex Jones should be allowed to say anything he wants. Get rid of the guns. Every time there's a shooting, do we have to know the politics of these lunatics? Who cares what a lunatic believes? But that's, instead of addressing gun control, we immediately need to know whose side was he on. Doesn't matter, because we don't elect assassins in this country. We elect politicians. Judge my politics, judge my ideology, not by the crazies, but by who I elect, who represents me. I'm sorry, I have a lot of quarrels with the Democratic Party, but you would be hard-pressed to find a single Democratic senator or member of Congress or governor or mayor who celebrates violence. I can't think of any. Leave a comment. I'm not trying to stir up violence. I'm asking Republicans who are all in on the guns not to celebrate guns as much as you do. And I'm asking Trey Gowdy has come on to our side, at least temporarily. We're not going to end the bloodshed until we have sensible gun laws in this country. Back in June, Donald Trump was asked if he planned on calling Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, after the shooting of these Democratic lawmakers, because that's what presidents do. Are you okay? Do you need any help? But Trump answered, "Why would I call him? It's a waste of time," unquote. Republican Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna of Florida, who chairs the subcommittee that reopened an investigation into the assassination of President Kennedy, on the day of Kirk's killing, shouted at Democrats on the House floor, "You all caused this." They were calling for gun control legislation. She later blamed the shooting on hateful rhetoric from the left, adding Democrats constantly call conservatives fascists. Well, that's because Donald Trump is a fascist. That is a political ideology manifested in his behavior and his policy. Several of Trump's former generals have even said Donald Trump is a fascist. If you don't like being called a fascist, don't be one. Secondly, even if it's inaccurate to call Donald Trump a fascist, we should be able to argue and even say things we don't even mean without having to worry that somebody is going to get shot. And I keep telling you this, it's why guns make us less free. Guns make us less free. Luna has written a letter to colleagues demanding a statue of Charlie Kirk be placed inside the U.S. Capitol. Georgia House Republican Tom Clyde, who owns one of the largest gun stores in America, was asked if he would support a statue of Charlie Kirk inside the Capitol. Tom Clyde said, quote, "Why not? We have a statue of Martin Luther King in the Capitol, don't we?" Unquote. Terry Schilling is president of American Principles Project, which pushes for right-wing causes. Speaking of Kirk, Schilling said he could only compare Kirk's killing to that of Martin Luther King's, saying both men were cut down at a time when they were so influential and had such a tremendous following. William Donahue is chairman of College Republicans of America. He called Kirk's assassination, quote, a watershed moment, an event on the scale of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. Intercessors for America is a Christian organization founded in the 70s that believes there's no problem so big that can't be solved with a little prayer. Huge supporter of Trump and right-wing causes, on the day of Kirk's killing, the organization sent out an email soliciting donations with the subject heading, quote, Charlie Kirk, a modern-day MLK. Well, at least it rhymed. I'm not exactly sure if Charlie Kirk would appreciate the comparison. Throughout the years, organizations like Media Matters have kept careful watch on what Kirk said during his podcasts and in his speeches. Kirk called Martin Luther King awful, quote, not a good person. Kirk called the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which Dr. King fought so hard for, quote, a huge mistake. Kirk called the Civil Rights Act of 1964 a weapon used against white people. He drew a link between idolizing Dr. King and the collapse of black families and economic stagnation in the black community. So I disagree with all of that, but he believed it. It's why Glenn Beck called him a civil rights leader. To Charlie Kirk's credit, he was willing to debate anyone. He even debated my friend Ben Burgess, Professor Ben Burgess. He was willing to debate anyone. In terms of winning debates, verbal sparring, he was pretty great at it. He knew how to win by any means necessary. Yes, he was a rhetorical bully, but as he said, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Don't pick up a weapon. And I can't believe I have to remind people of that, but I live in the United States. Debating against the merits of DEI, Kirk said, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified, unquote. I disagree. In fact, if I never met Charlie Kirk, and now I don't have an opportunity to, I would tell him, I want a black pilot. I want a black surgeon or a female surgeon or a female pilot. That's my prejudice. I think black and female surgeons in this country have to be 4 times better than a white male in order to make 75% on the dollar if they're lucky. That's another reason I want a black or a female surgeon. They charge less. No, that's a horrible, I'm joking. But I would have loved to have said that to Charlie Kirk and made him laugh. And I'm not going to get that opportunity. Ben Burgess, my friend, said, look, we should be able to debate one another. We should be able to debate. I know it's not a game. I know that politics has real world consequences and words have consequences. But we have to talk to the other side. And we have to, and we can't belittle or mock. And we don't. There's some idiots who take to social media, but they're not my responsibility. My politicians are my responsibility. And let me know if there have been any irresponsible Democrats. I need to know. Comparing Charlie Kirk to Martin Luther King, I don't think that honors his memory. Kirk said, quote, the American Democrat Party hates this country and loves it when America becomes less white, unquote. Okay, if I ever met Charlie, I would have said guilty as charged. I want America to be less white. But it would have been a fun conversation. Kirk was an unapologetic champion of the Great Replacement theory, accusing powerful Jews of spending their money, their wealth, to encourage the migration of dark-skinned immigrants in order to change the complexion of America. That is the Great Replacement theory. Calling himself a supporter of Israel, he laid into Jewish donors who he said, quote, have been the number one funding mechanism of radical open border, neoliberal, quasi-Marxist policies, cultural institutions, and nonprofits. This is a beast created by secular Jews, unquote. He drew a direct line between Hamas's attack on October 7th, 2023, and powerful Jewish money pouring into liberal cultural institutions. And he said, quote, and now they're coming for Jews, and these wealthy donors are like, what on earth happened? He goes on, and it's not just the colleges, it's the nonprofits, it's the movies, it's Hollywood, it's all of it. Talking about the Jews in Hollywood. So this is a finely tuned anti-Semitic trope coming from the right these days, especially white Christian nationalists who believe America is a Christian nation, people who believe in America we can accept all people, but this country belongs to white Christians. If you read what they're saying, the speeches they're given, when they see Obama or Kamala Harris, they feel their birthright has been stripped of them. So what do you do about that? What do you do about that? You communicate, you talk, you try to convince them, maybe if you made more money and had access to better schools, cleaner water, better jobs, you wouldn't feel you've lost your birthright. A lot of these people are tricked into believing it's the Jews, the blacks, the Mexicans, the Asians who are destroying their lives when in fact it's the ruling class. So I was going to talk about, how am I doing on time here? Okay, I'm going to move on. Let me just have some other notes here. Yeah, I don't want to talk about this. Okay. So, where am I? I'm sorry. It's been a rough week. I've played speeches of Charlie Kirk where he says he's also opposed to legal immigration, not just illegal immigration, but legal immigration. Kirk was very clear about not allowing people in who don't look like him, people who don't come from European countries. Kirk described immigration from Muslim countries as, quote, civilizational suicide. So I believe that's a terrible thing to say. You defeat him at the ballot box. You defeat him at the ballot box. Islam, he said, is not compatible with Western civilization. Okay. That's a horrible thing to say. And not going to make excuses for him. We have to win at the ballot box. So why did Harris lose Michigan and Arizona, which has huge Arab populations? And Biden won Michigan and Arizona. What happened? I mean, if you have Republicans who believe and openly admit that Islam is not compatible with Western civilization when you have a candidate, Donald Trump, who tried to institute a Muslim ban, literally called it a Muslim ban. What happened? Why did Biden win Michigan and Arizona, but Kamala Harris lost Michigan and Arizona, two states with large Arab American populations? I'll tell you what happened. Democrats wouldn't even let Rashida Tlaib, the only Palestinian American serving in Congress, to speak at the Democratic convention. That's partly why Kamala Harris lost Michigan and Arizona, even though the down ballot candidates, who were Democrats, won. The message to Arab American voters was, we're not even willing to listen to you. That complete silence from the Democrats said, we're wringing our hands over what's happening in Gaza. Vote for Harris because it will be a lot worse for you if Trump wins. But we don't want Rashida Tlaib to speak at the Democratic convention. We have to talk. We have to talk. You have to hear things even if they're painful. Even if you don't agree, we have to talk. Kirk advised women to, quote, reject feminism, submit to your husband, you're not in charge, unquote. That's quaint. By the way, that's proof that there's no such thing as a cancel culture. I mean, he was a multi-millionaire. I don't know where they get the idea that you can get canceled in this country. Reject feminism, submit to your husband, you're not in charge. On abortion, he stated that if his 10-year-old daughter became pregnant due to rape, quote, the baby would be delivered. He argued, quote, it's worth it to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. I respectfully disagree. Thanks to the proliferation of guns in this country, we are losing our God-given rights. We are now being told to watch what we say. We are told it's our words that get people killed, not the guns. The Republicans who are in the pocket of the weapons manufacturers knew what to say. It's the words that killed Charlie Kirk. It's the left, it's the Democrats, not the guns. So we get blamed for criticizing somebody on the right who ends up getting shot. Guns are robbing us of our most cherished freedom, speech. So our side, the Democrats, don't believe in guns. Our side doesn't believe in violence. Our side is opposed to murder in all its manifestations. Our side is opposed to capital punishment, or at least it should be. Whoever shot Charlie Kirk wasn't on our side. Our side, as the great Bernie Sanders just said, our side is haunted by Bobby Kennedy, the good Bobby Kennedy, the dad. We're haunted by what might have been. Our side is haunted by Dr. King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, John Lennon, the children from Uvalde or Sandy Hook, and what might have been. Don't be stupid. Don't be stupid. I have a big mouth, and I like to have hot takes on things. Use your head. Don't post stupid things. It doesn't help. But don't blame my side or the other side for stupid people. Blame their politicians, because that's all that matters. All that matters is who controls the White House, Congress, and the Supreme Court. Everything else is inconsequential. Of course, governors, mayors, and state, So, as I said at the top of the show, if you're nervous, you're angry, and you're depressed, get to work on the 2026 midterms. Work locally and try to find common ground with people who you think are awful politically. You don't, believe me, I live for the fight. I do. I have certain friends, but they're human beings. They are. This is the mop-up. Dial it back, everybody. Dial it. All that matters is politics. That's all that matters. I mean that. The only solution is politics. I believe in big government, and I believe the only solution is good government. As I was saying, this is the mop-up. I'm David Feldman coming to you from New York City. Thank you for finding me. Please share this episode. And some of you are having trouble finding the feed. And let me show you what to do. So you have to turn off. Here it is. Let me show this to you. Let me go big here. This is one of the reasons you can't find me. So go to your YouTube account and go to the far right corner, and I have a screen grab of my far right corner, and you see David Feldman, view your channel or whatever it says there, and scroll down right there to restricted mode. Turn it off. If you're not getting my feed, it's because you have restricted mode on right there. Okay? That's because for some reason I'm deemed, I don't know, but some of this is restricted. Okay, where am I? Okay. Anybody still here? As I was saying, guns make us less free. They prevent us from engaging in honest debate and, more importantly, saying stupid things. We should be able to say incredibly stupid things and not have to worry that some idiot is going to shoot someone over it. The State Department announced that it's vetting social media looking to ban any foreigner in this country who celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk. Chris Landau, a top State Department official, is urging Americans to scour the internet and report any foreigners in our country or overseas who posted derogatory comments about Charlie Kirk, who belittled his death. Pete Hegseth, our defense chief, ordered soldiers to report any member of the military who belittled the killing of Charlie Kirk. And there are reports, I believe from NBC News, that several Pentagon employees were fired because of that. Secretary of State Marco Rubio earlier this year began revoking green cards and visas for anyone who took part in protests against Israel or who posted anything in support of the people of Gaza. On September 2nd, Donald Trump said America's military destroyed a boat in the Caribbean, killing 11 narco-terrorists working for the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. According to an executive order back in March, Trump declared that the United States has been invaded by Venezuela. And as I keep saying, it would be a common courtesy to tell Venezuela they've invaded us. I think that's only fair. There are now reports that the boat that was fired upon, 11 people killed, had turned around, headed back to shore after the captain spotted the attack drone. But American military fired anyway. It's also reported not everyone was killed all at once, that another drone was sent in to finish off the rest of the people on the boat in a second strike. Venezuela's interior minister saying an investigation shows the 11 people killed were not gang members and weren't smuggling drugs. Senator Jack Reed, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee, now saying the Pentagon failed to present any proof to his committee that the 11 people on board that boat were who the Trump White House claims they were. He was later joined by Virginia Democrat Senator Tim Kaine and nearly 24 other Democratic senators demanding to know the legal justification for these attacks. So, rules of engagement forbid our military from firing upon an enemy boat that is retreating. And the rules also forbid our military from using lethal force when there is no imminent threat. The people on that boat must be given an opportunity to surrender before being fired upon. Republican Senator Rand Paul now calling the attack, quote, a blatant violation of the rules of engagement. Earlier in the week, J.D. Vance, our vice president, responded to accusations that the airstrikes were a war crime by saying, quote, I don't give a shit, unquote. Republican Senator Rand Paul called the vice president's comment despicable and thoughtless. As our military sends jet fighters to Puerto Rico and warships into the Caribbean as part of the largest buildup of military assets in South America since our invasion of Panama, Trump was asked, are you planning a land invasion of Venezuela? Trump smirked and said, you're going to find out. Actually, he's invading Memphis, Tennessee first. That's what they're saying. He's decided not to go into Chicago, and instead he's invading Memphis, Tennessee. At least that's the plan for now. Maybe a feint. He may, like Eisenhower wanted Hitler to believe it was Calais instead of Normandy for D-Day. This might be a feint. He may be actually going into Chicago, but they're telling us the invasion is set for Memphis. So it's the enemy within. If anybody from Venezuela is watching, Trump has said the problem in America is the enemy within, not foreign countries. So I'm optimistic. I am. I believe there will be no land invasion of Venezuela. I'm hopeful because I think Trump's going to wage war on us here in the United States instead. Fingers crossed. Hoping what a country. Well, I don't think he's going to invade Venezuela. I think what he's going to do, instead of attacking Venezuela, he's going to do what he did after the airstrikes over Yemen. He's just going to stop and say victory, even though the Houthis are still firing weapons at ships in Israel. By the way, here's the new. Mike Johnson put this up in Statuary Hall. It's the new Trump War Memorial, Victory Over Venezuela. Let's celebrate how he destroyed that boat carrying 11 people. Maya Lin, who did the Vietnam Memorial, that breathtaking memorial, she also did this. It's our dear leader in a terry cloth robe sitting on the turlet, fried chicken sandwich in one hand, cell phone in the other, and she depicts him on the toilet ordering the airstrike as his chicken sandwich gets cold. Very Churchillian. Not Winston. Church's Fried Chicken. That's where the sandwich is from. There's something that draws me to that statue of Trump. By the way, speaking of invading Venezuela, Trump and Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio said they had no choice but to attack that Venezuelan ship in order to stop the flow of drugs coming into America. The truth is, both our U.S. intelligence agencies and the United Nations have concluded that cocaine comes from Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, but not Venezuela. What Venezuela does have, however, is a massive reserve of oil, possibly the largest oil reserves in the world. But come on, America would never fight a war on behalf of the oil companies. Instead, we fight a war to stop the flow of drugs into our country. That's what we do. We spend billions, trillions to stop the flow of drugs into our country instead of spending billions on free mental health care treatment, or at least affordable mental health care treatment, so there's no longer any market for these drugs pouring over the border. You know who runs, if you want to go into rehab? Mitt Romney's Bain Capital invests in drug rehab. So that's why they block Medicare for all. They don't want free rehab because there's a lot of money to be made, a lot, in charging people to get clean. Speaking of people who dumped crack cocaine into the inner city in order to fund the Contras in their war against the Sandinistas in Nicaragua, Colonel Oliver North married his former secretary, Fawn Hall. Some of you might remember Fawn Hall testified during the Iran Contra hearings. She testified that she shredded documents for her boss, Oliver North, now her husband. She did that in order to hide evidence that despite the Boland Amendment specifically forbidden foreign aid to the Contras, Oliver North sold weapons to Iran, our enemy, in exchange for releasing some hostages, even though we don't negotiate with terrorists until we do. And then North used the profits from the sale of those weapons to fund an illegal war in Nicaragua. One of the worst things ever done by a president. Just a flagrant disregard of the Constitution. Reagan should have been impeached, but Democrats at the time felt it would look unseemly to force a Republican president to resign right after forcing the previously duly elected Republican president to resign. That'd be Richard Nixon. Ford wasn't duly elected. So the Democrats backed off. They literally said, are we going to just have to start impeaching every Republican president? Yes. Reagan's defense was, okay, this is true. He went on national television. He said, I guess I ordered people to trade arms for hostages and then use the proceeds to fund an illegal war on the Nicaraguan government, but I didn't know I was doing it. And it worked. People went, he didn't know what he was doing. So Republicans said, oh, wait, let's just keep nominating cretins like Reagan. So they elected George W. Bush, who's an idiot, and Donald Trump, who's even a bigger idiot. That way they can say, yeah, maybe he committed war crimes, maybe he's destroying the Constitution, but, he's like Reagan. He's Reagan-esque. He's too stupid to know what he's doing, so don't be angry. Don't prosecute. The man's a moron. You want to beat up on a moron? Seriously, that's the Reagan legacy. He taught Republicans how to commit crimes. You do it by putting a moron front and center. Former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, also known as Trump of the Tropics, has been found guilty of plotting to overthrow his government after losing his 2022 bid for re-election to Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. A panel of 5 Supreme Court justices ruled 4-1 that Bolsonaro, a former Army captain turned politician, conspired to incite the mob that stormed Congress, the Supreme Court, and the presidential palace on January 8th, 2023. And for some reason, they were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." I don't know what that was about. Or maybe my Portuguese is off. Codenamed Operation Green and Yellow Dagger, Bolsonaro was found guilty of plotting to assassinate both President Lula and a Supreme Court justice. The only thing preventing this plan, Operation Green and Yellow Dagger, from actually occurring or succeeding was most branches of the military refused to go along. Bolsonaro, who fled to Florida after the failed coup, met with Trump as well as Steve Bannon. And then he went back to face trial, and he has been sentenced to 27 years in prison. A previous court stripped Bolsonaro of the right to re-enter politics until 2030. And getting stripped of that right in Brazil is very painful because they use hot wax. This is a picture, by the way, of Bolsonaro under house arrest. You can see he's not cleaning up after himself. He really needs, here he is saying goodbye to his pet rat named, this is true, he has a pet rat named Homeland Security Director Kristi Noem. Seems like an odd name for a rat. Well, because fascists never admit defeat, Bolsonaro will appeal this week's ruling by going before Brazil's full 11-member Supreme Court. This week's verdict was handed down by a 5-judge Supreme Court panel. Had the verdict been unanimous, he couldn't appeal. But the final verdict was 4-1, so he's entitled now to go before the full Supreme Court, all 11 justices. Right now, because of the current makeup of the Supreme Court, he doesn't have any chance on appeal. In the meantime, however, next year, Brazil holds another presidential election. Bolsonaro's son is expected to run against Lula, and they're hoping he wins and then can pardon his father. Or enough pro-Bolsonaro politicians will be elected to impeach everyone on the Supreme Court. That way they can overturn his conviction. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has imposed a 50% tariff on all Brazilian imports to protest Bolsonaro's trial. It's the fascist brotherhood. Secretary of State Marco Rubio condemned this week's verdict convicting Bolsonaro. Marco Rubio called it a witch hunt. He accused the Supreme Court of political persecution and promised the United States would take appropriate action. Before the trial began, Rubio denied travel visas to several of the Supreme Court justices presiding over Bolsonaro's trial. Drawing parallels to himself, Donald Trump said he, too, was disappointed by the Bolsonaro verdict, calling Bolsonaro a great president. Trump added, they try to do the same thing to me here in the United States, but they didn't get away with it. During Bolsonaro's presidency, the Amazon was set ablaze in order to create more grazing land for cattle and mining. Under Lula, right now, wind and solar power fuel over 1/3 of Brazil's entire electricity grid, with climate change activists saying of all the countries in the G20, Brazil is the only one on track to bring its carbon emissions down to the levels agreed upon in the Paris Climate Accords. Bolsonaro burnt the rainforests, didn't support alternative energy. Lee Stinton, a 46-year-old hairdresser from Northern Ireland working for the past 6 years in Key West, Florida, was apprehended by ICE agents back in June while he was riding on his bike going to work. Stinton said one of the ICE agents said he was being stopped because, quote, "you look Mexican," unquote. Stinton had a work authorization and was in the process of getting a green card. No arrest record and not in the country illegally. Stinton was forced to spend a month inside an ICE detention center where he described the conditions as appalling. Back in Ireland, he gave this interview saying this.
This all started around, I think if I remember correctly, it was June 8th. I was on my way to work, which I did every day. I cycled every day, and I was arrested by an ICE officer and kind of kidnapped, I guess, off the street, and taken to Crome Detention Centre. The conditions in Crome were the most inhumane thing that I've ever experienced in my life. They had nowhere for anyone to sleep. They weren't feeding people, and they were very abusive to the inmates. The holding cell that had us in for almost 8 days was meant to have 10 people in it, and there was at least 100 men. We were like sardines, all just stuck on like a cold concrete floor. I want people to know that it's not just criminals that are being taken. It's like normal everyday people, like myself. Like I had like a correct visa. I had all my paperwork together. I had a social security number. I paid my taxes. I've never been in trouble with the police before in my life, either in America or Northern Ireland, and still they took me. You know, I think they're just looking for numbers at this point. A lot of things that either happened to me and happened to others. There was a guy that had been asking for his medication for days for his heart, and when we were out in the rec hall, the rec yard, he dropped dead of a heart attack in front of everyone. They kind of just moved us all away from him, but it's something that I'm never ever gonna forget. You know, it's ingrained in my head.
Yeah, I can see how the ICE agent thought he was Mexican. You look Mexican. This portion of the David Feldman Show is brought to you by the United States Tourist Board. Come to America. Free room and board. I can't understand why tourism is down. In Arizona, state Republicans are demanding the expulsion of Arizona State Senator Annalise Ortiz after she reposted an Instagram message warning that ICE agents were standing outside an elementary school in her district. Libs of TikTok accused her of doxing ICE agents and endangering their lives by reposting that information on Instagram. So warning her constituents that ICE is looking to make an illegal arrest, that's endangering the lives of ICE agents, telling people not to go someplace, to avoid contact with ICE. That's endangering the lives of ICE agents. Interesting. Senator Ortiz faced ethics charges after she screamed shame when Arizona Senate voted to outlaw abortion. Arizona's Democratic Attorney General Chris Mays calling the state senator's repost of the ICE warning on Instagram, she called it protected speech. Not expecting any help from Arizona's Democratic governor or Democratic attorney general, the senator filing the ethics complaint reported Senator Ortiz to the U.S. Attorney's Office down in Arizona for a possible federal prosecution. Arizona State Attorney General, Democrat Chris Mays, calling this, quote, a pathetic attempt to intimidate and silence. Jake Hoffman is the Republican state senator who filed the complaint. He was indicted in April of last year for participating in the false electors scheme of 2020. Scary stuff. Annoying stuff. Meanwhile, a judge in Michigan threw out that attorney general's indictment of the Republicans who participated in that false elector scheme. So the false elector, it may get thrown out it was thrown out in Michigan. It could get thrown out in Arizona, where, by the way, Rudy Giuliani was indicted in the Arizona false electors scheme. Rudy, your thoughts on this? This is Rudy, by the way. He's back on his podcast. He's got all stitched up from that car accident. He's doing fine. So what do you think?
Now the woman just down the wall. Blah, blah.
I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Please share this episode with your friends. Take to social media. And what else? Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room. And yeah, leave a comment if I made any mistakes. Thank you so much for listening. I think that covers everything, right? Maybe we need to see this. Do we want to? No, we don't want to see Trump. Do we want to see Trump self-fertilizing the lawn? I know. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do this. I promise you. I'm not going to do this. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. Not gonna, it's inappropriate. Doesn't help. Doesn't help to do that. Or to show Donald Trump throwing up egg salad. This is. Why would you do that? Why would you put that? Nobody wants to see that. Or him throwing up a Happy Meal. Nobody wants to see this. Nobody, I'm sorry. I want to apologize. Nobody wants to see this, okay? Nobody wants to see Donald Trump throw up a Happy Meal. That's just, it doesn't help. It hurts. It hurts the show, okay? And I apologize. I'm not going to show that. All right? And I'm not going to show you this. I don't even know what this is. I don't know what that was, and nobody should have to see it. This. Nobody should have to see that. Or this. And I don't even know what this is. I apologize. It's got to stop. Goodbye. Thank you.